And their alarm was such that they were afraid that if soldiers did these things, they would be subject to potential court-martial in the future. So these 4 JAGs, again, behind the scenes, pushed back against the Pentagon's leadership, saying we cannot possibly endorse these things. And what the lawyer for the Pentagon did was contacted John Yoo in the Justice Department, and in March of 2003, he wrote another memo, essentially repeating the memo he'd written for the CIA, and the Pentagon used that to silence the top JAGs. But they were still concerned, but everything was classified. So they didn't know what to do. So they went and they met with Scott Horton, who is an international law expert, and a military law expert, lives in New York City, and at the time was head of the International Law Committee of the New York Bar Association. Now these guys had to speak hypothetically because what they were talking about was secret and classified. But to my understanding, they would say something to the effect that what would be the circumstances if uniformed soldiers in a country that is signatory to the Geneva Conventions were to engage in, they might give some hypothetical scenarios. Horton protected and preserved their, the classification they were alluding to, but he then banded together with a bunch of legal intellectuals in New York, and they produced a policy document basically saying what is legal in this kind of a war that the United States is engaged in terms of interrogation and detention. And that comes out in early 2004. Now, meanwhile, down at Guantanamo, the Bush administration was getting a lot of flack for Guantanamo and for the military commissions, that had not yet started working, but allied countries and others were, somewhat critical of this, and certainly the bar associations in the United States. So the Bush administration wanted to have a couple of quick cases move through. But of course, for a legal system, anybody who's going to be prosecuted must also be defended. And so some military lawyers were assigned to be the defense lawyers for the first Guantanamo detainees who were tapped for prosecution. And these are several of the first group. The expectation on them, as they were told by the Pentagon, was plea bargain these guys, let's just get a couple quick sentences and show that this system is working. Well, what these lawyers did, in a fashion that was perhaps unexpected by the Pentagon, but shouldn't have been, was that they behaved like lawyers. Lawyers are trained in the law, and they are schooled in legal ethics. And when they started talking to their clients and realizing how their clients had been treated, and realizing the kinds of rules that would be applicable in the military commissions, they started fighting back. I mean, they fought the government in the military commissions, and the guy on the left, Lieutenant Commander Charles Swift, took the fight a little further, and I'll come back to him. But as I was saying, much of what was going on with prisoners was secret. I mean, there wasn't much that was actually known about how people were being detained and treated, or who was there. And I just want to point out, again, a couple of people among, certainly more than just these folks, but these are some significant interlocutors early on. So Gabor Rona was working for the International Committee of the Red Cross at the time of 9/11 and into the first year or two. One of the jobs of the International Committee of the Red Cross, one of their duties and rights, they hold the Geneva Convention,